Above the swirling clouds of Earth, the Thalrex observation ship Varnox drifted silently. Its sleek obsidian hull shimmered against the dark void, invisible to human instruments. Inside, Commander Varel reclined in his command pod, sipping a glowing nutrient serum while watching a holographic feed of Earth's surface. His large, amber eyes narrowed as he zoomed in on a city aglow with neon and noise. "Primitive," he muttered, his voice tinged with both amusement and pity. "Their skies burn with fossil fire. Their networks are open chaos. Their languages are fractured and inefficient. It's astonishing they haven't destroyed themselves already." Behind him, his science officer, Threxel, gestured toward a data stream. "They've divided themselves into nearly 200 nation clusters. Constant disputes, inconsistent technology. Their most powerful nations still rely on combustion engines and metal projectiles." Varel waved a claw dismissively. "Then it will be like clearing fungus from a barren moon. Fast and clean." The crew chuckled. For the Thalrex, a race that had conquered hundreds of worlds without resistance, Earth seemed more like a curiosity than a threat. The planet's signals, music, drama, politics, were being intercepted and analyzed for entertainment more than strategic value. One technician had become obsessed with something called memes. Another had spent days watching clips of humans dancing in giant animal suits. "Do they have central leadership?" Varel asked. Threxel shook his head. "No, multiple systems of governance. Some even let random citizens make decisions. Their cultures contradict one another. They're emotional, erratic, still early in development." Varel nodded. "Then we claim it. Low effort, high value. Rich with resources. A breeding world for slave labor or terraforming." He stood, clasping his arms behind his back as he gazed at the blue planet. "Send a probe. Passive observation first. I want a full scan of their defenses, or lack thereof. Let's confirm they pose no real challenge before we prepare the fleet." Threxel activated the probe, which silently detached from the observation ship and began descending toward Earth's orbit. From the outside, it looked like a harmless metallic cylinder, gliding smoothly above the planet's surface. What they didn't see, what they couldn't see, were the Earth-based telescopes that turned to track it. Hidden military satellites locked on within minutes. Quiet alarms triggered silent meetings in bunkers, boardrooms, and war rooms. On Earth, humans didn't panic. Not yet. They didn't even speak publicly. But behind closed doors, something ancient stirred. Something Earth's watchers had forgotten. Humanity's instinct to unite when threatened. They were chaotic, yes. Divided often. But they were also survivors. Builders. Fighters. The Thalrex ship continued its passive orbit, confident in its superiority, unaware that the humans below were already watching back. And somewhere in a dark military server, an Earth general leaned over a digital map, narrowed his eyes, and whispered to no one in particular. Whatever that is, it picked the wrong planet. The probe drifted across low Earth orbit like a silent phantom. It pulsed with sensors, scanning frequencies, atmospheric composition, and electromagnetic patterns. From the Varnox Eye, Commander Varel watched the data roll in, smug and relaxed. "Low-tier satellite network," Threxel announced. "Most of them are for weather and civilian communications, a few primitive weapons platforms, nothing close to a threat." Varel nodded. "Exactly as expected. They haven't even reached Mars with stability. What can they possibly do against us?" He turned away, already bored. But deep in Earth's northern hemisphere, in a mountain bunker beneath reinforced concrete and steel, alarms began to hum. "Unidentified orbital object," said Major Elena Park, staring at the monitor. "Not one of ours. It appeared 23 minutes ago. No known launch profile. No national registry." General Sokolov leaned forward. "So it's not ours, and it's not theirs. What is it?" Her fingers moved fast across the keyboard. "Trajectory suggests high precision. Controlled descent. It's slowing in perfect increments. That's not debris. That's a scout. Sokolov didn't hesitate. Scramble defense network. Silent mode. No public alerts. Bring in Sentinel. Within minutes, encrypted messages raced across the globe. In Washington, Moscow, Beijing, and New Delhi, select officials received codes that hadn't been used in decades. These weren't politicians. These were the people who stayed in the shadows, the architects of contingency plans, the guardians of impossible scenarios. Back in orbit, the probe shifted its path again, adjusting course over major population centers. It began pinging human satellites, trying to map their defense systems. To the Thalrex, this was standard procedure. It had worked flawlessly on over a dozen other worlds. But then, something odd happened. The probe's feed went black. On the Varnak's eye, systems flickered. Threxel's eyes widened. "We've lost connection." "Reboot the channel," Varel barked. "Trying." No response. It's like something cut our signal. Static filled the control room. Then a flicker, just for a second, but enough for every Thalrex on the bridge to see it. A human face, obscured by shadow. No words, just a cold stare. Then it vanished. "Impossible," Threxel whispered. On Earth, in a classified facility known only as Vault 9, a team of engineers cheered quietly. "We got it," said one, removing his headset. "Hijacked the signal. Reverse piggybacked it. We fed them a ghost and fried their relay." General Sokolov cracked a rare smile. "Let them wonder what else we can do." Back in space, the probe began spiraling. Its propulsion systems blinked erratically. Varel watched in disbelief as it plummeted into Earth's atmosphere and burned up in a spectacular streak of light over the Pacific Ocean. "What just happened?" he asked, his voice now colder. Threxel didn't answer. In that moment, the Thalrex realized something they hadn't considered. Humanity wasn't afraid. And worse, they weren't helpless. And below, Earth was already preparing for what came next. News of the probe's destruction never reached the public. There were no headlines, no breaking news alerts, no panicked commentators on TV. But in the world's hidden corridors of power, the silence spoke louder than any broadcast. In a chamber buried beneath Geneva, 10 men and women from 10 different nations sat around a polished steel table. Each had arrived without fanfare, under the cover of night, using channels that hadn't been touched in decades. They were spies, generals, scientists, and strategists, people who had seen the worst of humanity and were now being asked to save it. "Are we all in agreement?" asked Director Tanaka, head of Japan's Deep Space Surveillance Unit. "We are," said General Okafor from Nigeria. "This is not a test. This is real." President Alvarez of Brazil leaned forward. "Then we activate the protocols. No more waiting. Project Unity is live." Across the globe, doors that had been sealed for generations slid open. Forgotten bunkers roared to life. Subterranean labs flickered with cold fluorescent light. Engineers dusted off machines they were told they'd never need. These weren't weapons built by any one nation. These were collaborative horrors designed for one purpose: to defend Earth if the unthinkable ever came. And now, the unthinkable had arrived. In Alaska, a retired hacker codenamed Ghostline received a single line of encrypted code. No message, no details. He closed his laptop, walked into his garage, and opened a false wall behind his tool cabinet. Inside was an offline mainframe that hadn't been powered on since 2009. He smiled. It's about time. In India, a theoretical physicist working on energy weapon prototypes was handed a red keycard by a military officer she'd never met. She didn't ask questions. She just packed her things and boarded a jet to an unknown destination. Meanwhile, in space, the Varnak's eye rotated slowly, scanning Earth with cautious interest. Commander Varel was no longer relaxed. He now stood behind his officers with arms folded and jaw tight. The probe was compromised. Frexel said quietly. The signal breach came from at least 4 distinct sources. Different countries, different systems. Yet, coordinated. They're more connected than we thought, Varel muttered. They don't look unified, but they act as one under pressure. That makes them dangerous. He paused, considering the reports again. Begin atmospheric infiltration. Small drones, passive scans only. Let's see how deep the rabbit hole goes before we send a fleet. But Earth wasn't waiting. In an unmarked facility under the Nevada desert, 4 military supercomputers began speaking to each other for the first time. In minutes, they produced their first joint prediction. An off-world enemy would make contact again within 72 hours. Their second prediction: Earth could win, if it struck first. The countdown had started. And far beneath the surface, where no satellite could see, humanity wasn't just preparing for defense. It was preparing to make history. The Thalrex fleet drifted into formation above Earth, quiet and confident. From orbit, the planet still looked soft, green, blue, fragile. To them, it was ripe for harvesting. Commander Varel stood before the communication array aboard the Varnox I, dressed in ceremonial armor, posture regal. He was not just here to observe anymore. He was here to offer terms. That was how the Thalrex always began. Project strength, offer submission, then strike if needed. Open planetary broadcast, he commanded. Frexel tapped the interface. All major frequencies synchronized. Message will reach civilian and military channels. Translators running. Varel stepped into the projection chamber. His image was processed, adjusted for human eyes, and transmitted across Earth's skies. Televisions flickered. Radios cracked. Digital billboards glitched. Every screen went dark. And then his face appeared. People froze. I speak on behalf of the Thalrex Dominion, he said, voice calm and metallic. We have observed your planet. We have assessed your strength, and we find it lacking. He paused. Surrender your governance, your resources, and your technological archives. You will be spared. Resist, and you will be extinguished. The message repeated twice more, then ended. Varel stepped back, satisfied. Let's see what noise they make now. For a moment, Earth was silent. Then came the reply. It didn't come from a government. It didn't come from a known military channel. It came from an unregistered frequency, raw, powerful, and global. Every device that had shown the Thalrex message suddenly sparked back to life. But this time, it wasn't a face that appeared. It was a silhouette. A single figure stood in darkness, backlit by fire and static. Human. Tall. Wearing armor that wasn't regulation. More battlefield improvisation than military standard. A voice came through, deep and unshaken. You came here thinking we were divided. Weak. Easy. The figure stepped forward. The outline of a helmet caught the light, scorched, dented, marked with a white handprint. You're not the first to try. You won't be the last. But here's what you forgot. The background shifted. Footage flashed, brief and violent. Human history. Wars. Revolutions. Cities rising from ruins. A mushroom cloud. A firefighter carrying a child. A protester staring down a tank. A launch from Cape Canaveral. We don't run. The figure raised a hand, and every major human satellite flared in sync. Lasers ignited. Railguns powered up. Stealth drones lifted from ocean floors. Ancient defense grids reactivated after years of slumber. The voice spoke again. You wanted a planet to conquer. Instead, you woke up something dangerous. The message cut off. In orbit, alarms screamed aboard the Varnox I. What just happened? Varel barked. Earth's satellites just shifted, Frexel stammered. Thousands of them. And were being targeted. By what? Everything. From Earth's surface, a high-altitude railgun hidden in the Andes launched its first shot. The slug tore through the silence of space and punched a hole straight through one of the smaller Thalrex vessels. A warning shot. Earth had answered. And now, war had truly begun. The first confirmed kill of a Thalrex vessel echoed like thunder in orbit. What was meant to be a slow, surgical invasion turned instantly into chaos. The Varnak's eye rocked as shockwaves from the railgun strike echoed through the fleet's formation. Inside the command deck, red lights flashed. Officers scrambled. Commander Varel clenched the edge of the control panel as reports poured in. One of our corvettes, gone. Frexel shouted. Direct kinetic hit. We didn't detect the launch until it was too late. Varel snarled. Deploy countermeasures. Begin orbital suppression. Target their launch platforms. Show them what real firepower looks like. But Earth had no intention of trading shots from a distance. From hidden bases on every continent, humanity launched a storm. Hypersonic missiles screamed upward. Electromagnetic pulses burst through low orbit. Swarms of stealth drones released from old satellites, hidden in plain sight. Everything Earth had kept secret for decades came alive. And none of it followed Thalrex rules of engagement. Humanity didn't fight clean. In space, 3 more Thalrex scout ships exploded in streaks of blue plasma. On Earth's surface, missile silos that hadn't seen daylight in 50 years cracked open like tombs. Lasers ignited the sky. Railguns thundered. Nations that once threatened each other now coordinated in perfect, deadly sync. It was madness. It was beautiful. Varel stared at the tactical map. They're improvising. This isn't structured warfare. They're throwing everything at once. Yes, Threxel said quietly, and it's working. On Earth, chaos was strategy. General Sokolov stood in an underground command bunker, surrounded by screens and shouting officers. He wore no medals, no formal uniform, just a simple headset and the weight of a world on his shoulders. Activate echo teams, he said calmly. From the shadows of Earth's militaries, elite strike squads were deployed. Ghost units trained for extraterrestrial engagement, their missions kept secret even from their own governments. Each team carried custom-made weapons, forged from black budgets and theories too dangerous for science journals. They weren't just soldiers. They were hunters. Team Echo 9, dropped from a stratospheric plane over the Pacific, made contact with a descending Thalrex drone ship near New Zealand's coast. Using magnet boots, exosuits, and brutal efficiency, they boarded the ship midair, breached its hull with breaching torches, and painted its core with explosive gel. 17 seconds later, the ship detonated in a fireball of alien metal and seawater. Humanity had just captured its first alien tech. And they weren't done. Back aboard the Varnak's Eye, Varel watched as icons on his tactical display began disappearing, one after another. Ships destroyed. Signals lost. Scans jammed. This isn't a primitive planet, he whispered. Frexel turned slowly. No, it's a trap. The whole world is a weapon. Varel stared out the viewport, where the curve of Earth glowed beneath the stars. And for the first time, he felt it. Doubt. The Thalrex didn't retreat. They evolved. Commander Varel's pride was scorched, but not broken. He had underestimated Earth. He would not make that mistake again. All forward units, he ordered, voice steel. Deploy suppression protocols. Initiate atmospheric descent. If they want to fight, we'll bring it to their sky. Dozens of Thalrex warships broke orbit, slicing into the atmosphere like molten blades. Their hulls shimmered with energy fields, absorbing heat and pressure. They weren't scouts anymore. These were warforms, vessels bred for planetary conquest. Earth's skies lit up with fire. Cities below watched in awe and dread as flinging ships pierced the clouds. Panic gripped civilians. Governments activated evacuation protocols. But in the chaos, something else moved, something calculated. Retaliation protocol. In a classified base beneath the Sahara, an AI known only as Blackveil came online. It had been trained on every recorded war in human history, every skirmish, every pattern of defeat and victory. Blackveil wasn't designed to predict. It was designed to counter. And it began feeding strategies to the global defense grid faster than any human could think. Launch drone web pattern Delta, it transmitted. In Earth's upper stratosphere, thousands of microdrones unfolded like digital petals. Invisible to radar, they created a moving net, mapping Thalrex descent vectors in real time and lacing the sky with electromagnetic interference. The first wave of Thalrex ships met a sky they no longer controlled. 2 crashed before they reached the ground. 1 exploded midair, torn apart by a swarm of high-altitude interceptors with no names, no markings, just purpose. Still, others broke through. A Thalrex dropship landed in the outskirts of Buenos Aires. Its bay doors opened with a hiss, and biomechanical troopers surged out, clad in obsidian armor, weapons humming with alien energy. They expected panic. Instead, they were met by a line of soldiers wearing armor made from scavenged alien alloys. Soldiers who had studied the footage, cracked the weapons, learned in hours what should have taken years. Echo teams. Led by Captain Nyla Rice, Echo 7 was already in position. Engage at will, she said into her voice calm. The street became a war zone. Plasma lit the night. Rail carbines punched holes through Thalrex armor. The humans fought like no enemy the Thalrex had ever faced. Fast, brutal, unpredictable. They didn't move in formation. They adapted on the fly. They didn't fight to hold ground. They fought to break the enemy's mind. Captain Rice vaulted over a wrecked car, slid beneath a blast, and jammed a spike charge into the back of a Thalrex trooper. It exploded in a flash of blue light. Her voice crackled over open comms. "You wanted a war," she said, eyes blazing. "Now you've got one." From orbit, Varel watched the feeds in silence. His soldiers were falling. Not in hours, not in days, in minutes. "They're not fighting for power," Threxel whispered. "They're fighting for home." Varel's claws tightened around the edge of the command rail. And Earth was winning. The war reached its fever pitch. Earth burned in places, but it did not fall. Thalrex forces, once unstoppable across hundreds of worlds, now found themselves locked in brutal close-quarter battles, outnumbered and outmaneuvered. For every human city scared, 5 Thalrex ships fell from the sky. Their technology, so advanced it once seemed like magic, was now being cracked, hijacked, and turned against them. Commander Varel stood before a fractured display, the Varnak's eye shaking beneath his boots. Smoke drifted from overloaded circuits. Threxel approached, armor scorched, voice hoarse. 3 more ground units lost. Human strike teams are targeting power cores. They're moving with data we didn't share. They know how we function. Varel turned slowly. They're adapting faster than our simulations predicted. They're not just adapting, Threxel said grimly. They're learning us. Across Earth, the resistance had become a coordinated storm. In Eastern Europe, salvaged Thalrex drones were now being flown by human pilots. In Africa, underground railguns were mounted on moving trains, turning the terrain into a roving trap. In the Pacific, a captured Thalrex command pod was reverse-engineered within 48 hours. Its communication codes fed directly into Earth's growing cyber warfront. Blackveil, Earth's AI defense system, had fully mapped the Thalrex fleet by now. It wasn't fighting like a program. It was fighting like a predator. On the battlefield, Captain Nyla Rice stood atop a cratered ridge, surveying the smoking remains of what had been a Thalrex artillery unit. Her squad was bruised, burned, but standing. She touched her earpiece. New orders. A voice came through, calm, synthetic, and strangely human. Blackveil. Fleet Command has cracked the Thalrex primary frequency. We've located their central uplink aboard the Varnak's Eye. Disabling it will cut coordination across their units. Just say the word, Rice said, already moving. Blackveil's tone didn't change. Then listen carefully. You're going to space. As Echo teams worldwide rallied, a classified human orbital platform powered up for the first time. Hidden from every telescope, it had been built in secret by a coalition of nations who never trusted peace to last. It had no name, just a purpose. Aboard it, Reyes and a joint strike force launched into low orbit, using alien cloaking tech pulled from a wreckage 2 days prior. They would reach the Varnox Eye within minutes. Back on the Thalrex flagship, Varel stared at the Earth in disbelief. They were meant to crumble, he said quietly. This world, it was never supposed to fight back like this. They're at the breaking point, Threxel replied. But so are we. Then an alert blared. Unidentified craft approaching from starboard. Trajectory direct to command hull. Varel turned slowly to the viewport. Through the glass, small as sparks but growing fast, he saw them. Humans, coming straight for his ship. And they weren't slowing down. The Varnox Eye shuddered under the first blast. Echo 7 had breached the hull. Not with subtlety or stealth, but with raw, human defiance. A captured Thalrex breacher pod, rigged with Earth-made explosives, punched a smoking hole into the command wing of the ship. Alarms blared. Atmosphere vented. Fire filled the corridor. Captain Nyla Reyes led the charge. She and her squad moved like they belonged there, jumping over railing gaps, shooting down drones midair, hacking into alien systems with jury-rigged tools taped together hours ago. They weren't meant to be here, but here they were. And they were tearing the Thalrex flagship apart from the inside. On the bridge, Commander Varel gripped the edge of the central console. His officers lay dead around him, felled by the invaders he once called primitive. He looked up at the main screen and saw it. The Earth. Still burning, still scared, but undefeated. He activated his last failsafe, a command to detonate the ship's core before the humans reached it. If Earth could not be conquered, it would be made an example. But it was already too late. A blast door split open. Captain Reyes stepped through the smoke, armor scorched, blood on her visor. Behind her, Echo 7 covered the corridor. "Don't move," she said, raising her weapon. Varel hesitated. "You can't stop it. My people will return. 1,000 more fleets will follow." Reyes didn't blink. "Let them. We'll be ready." She fired. The round hit the control node, sparking it offline. Blackveil's signal surged in seconds later, hijacking the Thalrex systems, locking down the failsafe and overriding the fleet's network. The flagship was now under human control. In orbit, across the remaining Thalrex vessels, systems went dark. Guidance failed. Weapon locks vanished. Communication collapsed. On Earth, as people looked to the sky, they saw the impossible. The Varnox Eye, once a symbol of alien domination, now slowly drifting, powerless, with Earth's own flag displayed across its surface via hijacked signal. The war was over, and humanity had won. 2 weeks later, world leaders gathered beneath the shattered remains of the orbital platform, now converted into a temporary command post. They didn't celebrate. Not yet, but they stood united. They had fought back the stars and survived. Blackveil delivered its final assessment. "The Thalrex underestimated you," it said. "They saw fire, but they didn't see the forge." Reyes, still recovering from her wounds, walked the halls of the captured flagship. Engineers studied every inch. Scientists took notes, but she didn't care about the tech. She was thinking about what came next, because Earth wasn't just defending anymore. It was preparing. If the stars wanted a war, humanity would be ready to bring one back.